Welcome back to Fight Capital, where we step into the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rappaport. Today, I'm joined by Dean Mojo Muhtadi, better known as the stage name of Mojo Rawley from his prolific WWE career, where he secured 7 WWE 24/7 championship titles. Beyond the ring, Mojo showcases versatility on the silver screen and Snake Eyes, and is now a prominent co-host on TMZ Sports, as well as the founder of Paragon Talent Agency. From football to WWE and onto film and broadcasting, Mojo's journey is a testament to his energy, talent, and tenacity. Thanks for being here today, Dean. How are you and where are you joining from?
I'm great, brother. Thanks for having me. I'm in my home office here in Orlando, Florida. Excited to kick this day off right.
Yeah, man. Well, you've had such an exciting career. Before you stepped into the world of the WWE, you had a really promising journey in the NFL. What aspects of your football background do you believe set that foundation for your wrestling career?
You always kind of hang your hat at the things that brought you to the dance. So for me, it was always that motor, that nonstop energy, and just always upbeat, positive attitude. So, I mean, that was kind of like the underlying foundation that I've taken with me, to wrestling. And after every phase of life, that's always been kind of my MO. But as far as maybe some of the physicality of football, the mental preparation. I mean, all of these things were extremely relevant to wrestling. Of course, it's a completely different world, but they always like to recruit former athletes because they know that they can handle the job physically. From there, it's just the mental journey, which is way more difficult. Learning how to wrestle, developing a character that works, winning the audience, and being able to combine all of these things simultaneously because if you're missing any one of them, you might not make it.
Well, I mean, definitely one of the things I had read about when doing some research is just that energy you've always brought to the football field, and a bunch of people you formerly played with were just like, man, this guy was always go, 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 always upbeat. And that definitely, I saw your WWE debut and you were like all over the place, in the ring, out the ring, up the ring, down the ring. I mean, it was pretty wild, but you always kind of seemed to bring, even during the challenging times, your energy and positive attitude with you, and they've always seemed unshakable. Where does that inner drive come from, and like how do you maintain that momentum in this high pressure world of professional athletics?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of always how I was as a kid, very hyped up, energetic, positive, having a good time. At least that's what my parents tell me. But that's how I started. It would have been very easy to slip out of that. But really, I found that to just be my competitive advantage and the thing that was working for me that made me different. Because taking it back to college, I wasn't recruited to play anywhere. I went to a Division III school where there are no athletic scholarships, and I had to fight my way up. I got to Maryland. I left behind my full academic scholarship that I ended up earning at my small school, and gave it up to walk on and pay over 30 grand a year at the University of Maryland. And it wasn't easy. They don't want to see walk on succeed typically. I mean, Maryland has a great track record with it, but any school, because that means that this guy that came in off the street beat out the scholarship athletes that the coaches vouched for and put money behind and invested in. So every walk on that makes it over a scholarship player, that's not really making coaches look like they know what they're doing, at least recruiting coaches. Luckily, I found a place that kind of embraces that culture, and it worked out extremely well for me. But same thing in the NFL, going in as an undrafted. Nobody wanted me to make the team. Nobody expected me to make the team. And you can't just be slightly better than the guy in front of you or the three guys in front of you. You have to absolutely dominate the game and be head and shoulders better than everyone else to even have consideration. So for me, I found out that, an attitude goes a long way. That performance is one thing, but if you can combine everything on the field, off the field with a positive mental attitude, that energy that is infectious, that motivates and hypes up the entire team, that's kind of your ticket. So my initial foundation almost became my brand, my signature, and what was working for me and most successful. So, yeah, man, I mean, I'm glad it worked out that way because it's allowed me to stay me this entire time.
Well, and you've punched that ticket through several uh, different variations of your career, right? Whether it was your college football self, your NFL self, your WWE self. Now you're firing up everything with Paragon Talent Agency. What drove you to start Paragon Talent Agency? And you just tell me a little bit about that and what your goals are with the organization.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, professional wrestling, after football, I was lucky to have a 10-year career in the WWE, which was awesome. I absolutely loved it. And I only had to stop because I ended up getting COVID really bad and it wrecked my lungs. I couldn't breathe for months. I couldn't speak because I couldn't get enough air in. I went to the hospital, I almost died. It got really, really nasty. And I was on the shelf for about a year. And then at the end of it, the decision was made. I ended my time with WWE, and it was on to the next. And I knew I couldn't wrestle anywhere else, so it was just like, what am I going to do? Luckily, I got the TMZ Sports gig, which was pretty awesome. But Paragon Talent Group was something that I kind of had in my back pocket for a long time. Because in the world of professional wrestling, there's no union. There's only a couple of agents or managers. Of those very, very few, there's a small percentage of them that I believe are actually gifted at what they do. I know there's a lot of people in the game that, well, they just collect a paycheck. I guess is one way to say it. But, I had this background. So seeing as how there was real no formal representation in the space. This was an idea that I had in my back pocket for a very long time, and I thought I could be the guy to build that bridge and being able to combine my business background, my MBA behind me, which I never really used before being an athlete, but and just my friendships in the locker room, being able to help people, and I was going through all of this myself, anyways. I was trying to figure out my next steps and I was lost and I was learning a ton and I was looking around and I was seeing people going through the same process. So this is something that I knew I wanted to start. So my first phone call I made after kind of putting together this concept was one of my best friends, Steve K, who used to be the talent buyer at the Hard Rock in Las Vegas. And I pitched him this idea, and I mean, it took all of like 10, 15 seconds before he was in. I mean, he's been a lifelong wrestling fan too. So we started this company together, and we meant to start out with 10 clients that we could really focus in on and manage their day to day and everything. And fast forward a couple of years later, we're actually representing and working with 250 talent that we've done paid deals for over that time. In between two people, it's just a testament to not only our hard work, but just the amount of talent that there is available in the wrestling space and how they can deliver and turn one-off projects into life-lasting partnerships. And it's been really cool to see.
Well, I mean, you have a pretty unique spot, right? You're not just some guy off the street who has a law degree or an MBA, but you actually have that experience in the sport. You understand it. You know, like the hardships, the lack, and also the good things too. And you can speak to that from across the board. Like one of the things I'm always thinking about, obviously, like in the combat sports side, is like what other types of agencies or types of markets are dealing with. And I know that you kind of have your toe into the combat sports world. You've been going to those PFL events, and I know you have a lot of similar sponsors as some of the other top combat sports leagues. But was there when you look at combat sports and what you do for wrestling, are there any kind of like similar business models or like athlete management between the pro wrestling and the combat sports world that you've seen?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say the personalities and the characters, right? I mean, I think we're discovering at this point, I think the game has just continued to evolve every single year more towards this, but it's the personalities and the characters that are selling tickets, that are selling out stadiums, that are selling pay per views at home. It's not necessarily the most gifted and talented fighters, but it's the people making the most noise. And that's kind of, extremely similar to professional wrestling. I mean, you don't have to be the best technical wrestler on the planet to be the most popular. I mean, you just got to be the guy that's the most entertaining, cutting the best promos. You got the best character or gimmick, whether that's whether that's real or whether it's a completely made up one that's nothing like who you are. Um, some people find success in being the opposite of who they are in real life. But we're seeing that in combat sports, and it's applicable. It's more entertaining. I think that's why you're having a lot of these celebrity super fights pop up out of the woodwork. I mean, that's exactly what that is, right? I mean, most of those fights are all hype. I mean, the celebrities don't really know what they're doing. They can pick it up at an amateur level from the start, but if it's entertaining, we're gonna watch. I mean, the case in point, right, has got to be the fight that is more than likely not going to happen between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, that would have been the biggest fight in MMA history, the most pay-per-views, the most sponsorship money, every category of the fight game in terms of financial metrics, that would have been number one. And we're talking about two guys that have no idea what they're doing, even though Zuck, I know, has taken some jujitsu classes over the years. I wouldn't necessarily call him a pro after that.
No, man, you hit the nail right on the head. And I think that's one of the biggest thing that people struggle with as purists, right, is I want to see the best athlete versus the best athlete, irregardless of how many pay-per-views are sold. And that's just not how it works. These guys are business people, right? And it matters the money that's being put into it from outside, and the way that they're taking that and putting it back into the sport, into their athletes. So, people want to knock that type of thing, like particularly like a Nate Diaz and Logan Paul. He made more money in that hour of boxing than he did his whole UFC career, which is good for him. And I think people should be able to monetize themselves after their playing time or their fighting times. And I think looking at it from the talent agency perspective and where you're at, as someone who's a professional football side of it, are you seeing any changes or innovations that you would recommend for upcoming athletes who are seeking representation?
As far as athletes seeking representation, I would say explore all your options. People are so, scared to sign a contract. And to be honest, they should be. But I would just say for anyone looking for representation, just do your homework, have as many conversations as you possibly can. And be careful who you're signing your life away to. So I can tell you for our agency, we prefer to start off talent on non-exclusive arrangements. We want you to work with everybody else. We would never want to take money off of your table. You see it all the time where with exclusive representation, they're going to be biased and only put you towards gigs where they're getting a piece of that. They want inbounds. They want to sit on their ass and collect a check. They want to wait for you to do the hard work and bring these people in and them to do nothing. Well, we eat what we obtain over here. And we don't like to take commissions. We never take commissions off of deals we had nothing to do with. That's just not how we operate. It helps that everyone we work with are close personal friends. These are people that I was in the trenches with for a very long time. So I would never want to do that. But you know what? With how we conduct business, a lot of people come to us in the end and ask us to have exclusives with them. That happens on a weekly basis. But yeah, I would always advise people to very much caution who you're signing your life away to, because man, once those people have those contracts and those control over you, it is hard to get out of there. And by the time you figure it out, it might have literally cost you millions of dollars. And I've seen it way too many times.
Well, I mean, as someone who's been in the mix, you've seen it personally, right? And that speaks to your authenticity as a person, as an agent, and like the people that you're working with, because you're definitely in the minority of people who offer those type of deals. Everyone's like, lock them in,
Yeah,
defend,
exactly.
defend rather than deliver, right? Defend rather than deliver, which, the whole Mojo brand, right? That persona that you had in the WWE, it was charismatic, it was energetic, but it is a genuine reflection of who Dean is, right? And that's one of the things that I kind of always struggle with is, like, how do you and the talent you work with balance that authenticity with the demands of the actual entertainment side of the business?
Um, it is extremely tough, and it's actually harder, in my opinion, when you're playing a character that is as close to you as possible. My first character the stay hyped persona, um, that was challenging for me because I felt like that was most in line of with who I am as a person, upbeat, positive. Like I was able to apply my raw tools and assets to my game on a mic and in a ring, but it was almost the most frustrating for me in hindsight because stay hype was never supposed to be like, oh, I'm always excited and I'm, like that positive, bubbly, obnoxious, over the top behavior. That was never what Stay Hyped was supposed to be. Stay Hyped was supposed to be the fact that I was the guy that didn't have the off switch, that when I came home from a red eye, after 6 days on the road, different city every day, and everyone else in the locker room would go home and take a nap and go eat, I would drop my bags and go straight back to the training facility. And I would do 2 hours in the gym breaking records, and then I'd do 2 hours in the ring training, and then I'd go to an hour of yoga, and then I'd come home and I'd do film study. And it's like, that was nonstop, maintaining that nonstop, tireless optimism through it. Yeah, that's part of it. But Stay Hyped, which is my brand, which I own, which has always been my thing before and after WWE, that was the most frustrating for me to see that be warped into something it wasn't, because I knew what I was doing would resonate with people, and what it became to be would get obnoxious and one note after a while. And, it was damaging to my brand, as opposed to the character that was least like me when they wanted me to paint my face with these blue streaks and do this psychotic character. I was like, this is the opposite of me. This is definitely the dumbest thing I've ever done in my career. But since I know that this is not me and this is not a personal representation of Dean Muhtadi, whatever. Tons of wrestlers have had to do dumb things. It's the job. At the end of the day, they're paying you a good salary, a salary that you accepted, to put on a television show and play a pretend character. I think at the end of the day, in the professional wrestling world, we all have to remind ourselves that who we're playing on TV is not who we are as people. And trust me, on a daily basis, it can be very, very tough to listen to your own reminders.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to throw a little bit of a curveball here at you. I didn't mention this one to you beforehand, but like, given that experience with the WWE, what do you think about this whole relationship with the new TKO, which launched that fusion between the WWE and Endeavor's acquisition of that, and then the UFC? Because I'm sure you have a pretty unique insight, having been in that realm and kind of seeing outside the actual combat sports world. What are your thoughts on that whole relationship and the future of it?
Um, I'm very curious and interested to see where it goes. It was shocking from the start. I mean, we all thought that Vince McMahon was going to die in the chair, essentially at 200 years old, because Vince is invincible. But you know, to see the company sold, obviously there was a lot of circumstances around it. Was just, I never, saw the company being under other management. That was never a thought that, or a possibility that had popped into my brain and so many others. Partnering with the UFC makes total sense. The purchase by Endeavor. Um, Behind closed doors and behind the scenes, the UFC and the WWE have just so much in common. So I it definitely, I can see why that happened. As for how it's going to look in the future, I don't know. It just seems like they're going to remain two completely separate entities. I think the crossover everybody was expecting, potentially hoping for, is going to be a lot less than we thought it would be. I mean, I know Nick Khan's gone on record to say that he'd love to acquire the UFC fighters when they're done with their careers. It's going to be a while before we start to see a lot of those guys come over. And I think there's definitely going to be a saturation point at a line, because after a couple of those guys, you can't just be that UFC fighter. And we've had others come over before. Ronda Rousey was absolutely a different and unique situation because she got to a point where she was essentially bigger than the league, for a while. Like, she was doing movies, she was Hollywood, she was everywhere. She had a very marketable brand, which was herself, which I love. Ronda's an awesome person. I love Ronda. And she's never changed for anybody, and I've always respected that for her, about her. But that was a special case. I think there are other special cases in the UFC, but we'll see how many of them there will be in the end. But yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes. But yeah, we really haven't seen too much crossover just yet.
Yeah, not yet, but there's obviously the all of the different combat sports athletes who've made their way to the WWE, whether it's Brock before he went back or before he went to the UFC. I mean, those all of the they all have these kind of like legendary careers too, like Frank Shamrock. Was it Frank or Ken Shamrock? I forget. One of the Shamrock brothers was in there for a little bit. You had, I think, I want to say Bob Sapp made a couple
Yeah.
appearances as well. So it's just that crossover is also super interesting to me. And people always kind of like sell the wrestling athletes short as well, because the amount of physicality, the injury. I mean, it's like you're not on a mat, you're like on a piece of like plywood, right? That you guys are jumping 20 feet off of onto. So I don't want to sell any of that short. But it will be really curious. I'm really curious as well to see how not necessarily the brands merge, but how they support each other and help each other grow. Because I know Endeavor has something going on there, or they wouldn't have gone down this route. But hey, what's next for Mojo? I mean, are there any ventures outside the ring, perhaps in combat sports or in the talent agency that you're eyeing?
Well, I definitely have no interest in taking an MMA fight unless we get one of these celebrity super fight things I was talking about earlier with two untrained people who have no idea what they're doing. Maybe I'll take one of those one day if the
Yeah,
price is
yeah.
right. But growing Paragon has been an incredibly spiritually fulfilling thing. Maybe one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my entire life. Helping buddies, working together with buddies, making money for everybody, but just growing everybody's brand, bringing awareness to what professional wrestlers have to bring on a personal and professional level outside of the ring has been just awesome to see. And that was the mission from the start. So growing Paragon, it's been growing leaps and bounds every single week. Again, there's just been such a need there, and wrestlers just don't trust anybody. So it's awesome to be able to work with friends who trust each other. But I don't know. I definitely am getting the itch, being in this managerial role and being this close to wrestling without wrestling. It's been, well, my last match with WWE was June 2020, and that was my last match. So over 3 years now, coming up on 3.5 years, and I want to get back, man. I've still popped in the ring here and there and trained, and I'm obviously still in great shape. I've been working out. My cardio's up to par. Never can let that go. But yeah, I've been teasing it for a little bit. I've had some really exciting offers recently, in particular, that I'm considering and mulling over. But yeah, man, I'm just loving this freedom that I have, my career trajectory, being able to grow my brand and my business in just so many different ways that are dependent upon nobody but myself. It's been really cool, and I'm just happy where I'm just really happy with where my life is headed right now. And 1 year married now, and this is it's a new life, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, well, you got the new house, you got the company doing well. You guys are working with amazing brand partners across the board and with really interesting organizations. Where can the audience go if they want to keep following you, or if they want to learn more about working with Paragon Talent Agency for a brand or for an event?
Yeah, absolutely. My Instagram is at Stay Hype, Twitter at Mojo Muhtadi. Um, but Paragon is really where you should check it out. I mean, I'll always appreciate a follow and a friendly interaction on social. But yeah, everyone, please check out Paragon Talent Group. Check out our talent. Look at their followings. Look at their engagement. Look at the quality of the content they're able to produce to market any brand or organization. I mean, I truly believe that there's no other talent out there that do it better. That's why we put together our roster for a reason. I mean, you talk about people that are entertaining, that know how to engage and captivate an audience, create materials that are going to win over a crowd. I mean, that is exactly what the professional wrestling job calls for. And it's just perfect in working with any brands out there. Always would love to have the opportunity to chat more about that. So, yeah, please check out Paragon Talent Group. That would be fantastic.
Well, and I've seen the roster too, and you got millions and millions of fans that are stuffed into that across socials and the following that those athletes and those entertainers have. So, yeah, everyone go and check out Paragon. We got great stuff going on. But Dean, man, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate that and this fresh perspective that you're bringing to it, and looking forward to seeing what the team does next.
Playboy, thank you for having me on, man. This was fun. Anytime, I'd love to be back.
Thanks, brother.